They called themselves the Council, a gathering of species so ancient that their histories stretched into epochs humanity had never dreamed of. To them, stars were territories parceled out long before Earth's ancestors left the trees. They had mastered faster-than-light travel, built megastructures to cage suns, and considered their order the foundation of civilization itself. When word first reached them of a violent new world on the galactic fringe, they dismissed it as a curiosity. When that world resisted contact and destroyed a scout ship in panic, their patience ended. Humanity's first steps into the galaxy were not celebrated but condemned. In the council chamber, beneath domes of living crystal, representatives of 100 species debated whether Earth was worthy of even existing in the wider community. Their consensus was swift, unanimous, and dripping with disdain. Humans were reckless. They warred among themselves for millennia. They poisoned their seas and skies. They clung to beliefs that defied rational order. Worst of all, they adapted too quickly to every challenge placed before them. Such a race, they declared, would be a contagion if left unchecked. The judgment fell like a hammer. Earth was stripped of the right to independent exploration. All attempts at building ships beyond near orbit were outlawed. Patrol fleets were stationed in the system to monitor compliance. The Council imposed crushing levies, energy, minerals, data, resources funneled to alien vaults while billions on Earth starved. Attempts at resistance were met with swift retribution. Entire factories reduced to slag from orbit, research labs dismantled under guard, satellites obliterated before they could reach high orbit. Humanity was caged inside its cradle, told to accept its place as a minor client species and nothing more. On the surface, life became a cycle of humiliation. Skies once filled with hope of exploration now glittered with alien ships casting shadows across cities. Council envoys strode through governments as if they owned them, dictating policy, approving or denying production quotas, and selecting which human technologies were too dangerous to be pursued. Generations who had once dreamed of colonies on Mars or stations around Jupiter were forced to watch as alien overseers dismantled launch pads and recycled starships into scrap. The message was clear: humanity would serve, or humanity would suffer. To the Council, this was mercy. In their chronicles, species that defied order were annihilated. Earth was spared because it amused them to watch the once ambitious primates humbled. Council voices spoke openly of humanity as a cautionary tale, how fragile worlds must never be allowed to believe they were special. They pointed to Earth in debates as evidence that chaos must be contained. Their arrogance was so absolute that they mistook silence for obedience, despair for submission, and hunger for weakness. Yet even as humanity bent under the yoke, they never forgot the insult. In classrooms, children memorized alien edicts with clenched jaws. In factories, workers stripped of dignity whispered of the day when production quotas would no longer be filled for outsiders. Soldiers confined to planetary defense forces drilled with intensity, as though waiting for an order that never came. Humanity's spirit endured, smoldering beneath the ash of oppression. Still, to the Council, Earth remained irrelevant. Reports filed to the chamber spoke of a pacified population, reduced conflict, resources flowing as expected. Their fleets rotated through Sol not with vigilance but with routine boredom. They believed their domination was total and irreversible. Why should they suspect otherwise? After all, what could one small blue planet accomplish against a galactic order that had stood unchallenged for millennia? Their arrogance blinded them to the truth. For in their rush to cage humanity, they had revealed something vital: their methods, their technologies, their weaknesses. Every orbital strike, every confiscated machine, every enforced inspection became a lesson. Humanity was watching, learning, waiting. But on the record in the official chambers, Earth was nothing more than a conquered backwater. To the Council, it was a success story of control. To humanity, it was an open wound that time would never heal. They believed they had silenced the species forever. They had no idea they had only given humanity a reason to sharpen its resolve. The Council thought they understood Earth. They thought they had broken its will. They thought wrong. Years passed beneath the weight of alien dominion, and outwardly humanity seemed subdued. The Council interpreted the silence as proof of their mastery, but beneath the imposed order, something far more dangerous was forming. The very traits that had condemned Earth, adaptability, persistence, and defiance, were now being refined in secrecy. Humanity had been denied the stars, but they had not been stripped of their intellect. Scientists forced into sanctioned research projects used every opportunity to observe alien methods. Every confiscated data core, every piece of discarded equipment, every careless demonstration by occupying forces became a subject of clandestine study. Where the Council believed humans were shackled, they were in truth gathering fragments of knowledge, assembling them like puzzle pieces into a growing arsenal of understanding. Reverse engineering alien circuits, learning the properties of exotic alloys, mapping faster-than-light equations hidden in forbidden files, each discovery was preserved and carried forward by networks that grew beneath the Council's notice. The resistance did not exist as a single entity. It was scattered, decentralized, fragmented by design. Engineers in abandoned subway tunnels, programmers using obsolete satellites, miners carving caverns in asteroids, all shared one unspoken oath: humanity would not remain caged forever. Messages were whispered rather than transmitted, carried in memory rather than code, ensuring the Council's sensors remained blind to the scale of human defiance. Where the aliens saw decay, humans saw opportunity. Resources stripped from Earth were diverted in minute amounts, siphoned off shipments bound for alien vaults. Scrap from dismantled orbital stations was redirected to secret workshops. Abandoned drilling rigs became hidden foundries. Beneath the seas, beneath mountains, beneath the regolith of the moon, entire facilities bloomed unseen, producing the skeletons of vessels that no human was permitted to own. The unity that the Council thought impossible began to take shape. Former rivals who once competed for power now recognized the futility of division. Governments bent to survival rather than ideology. Nations who had feuded for centuries sent envoys into the same hidden chambers, speaking a single language of necessity. Humanity had always been fractious, but oppression forced them into cohesion. The Council's arrogance, their assumption that humanity's tribal nature would keep them broken, became the very catalyst for unprecedented unity. Training evolved in secret as well. Ground forces drilled in isolated deserts, naval academies disguised as civilian schools instructed cadets in tactics derived from alien battle recordings, and pilots prepared themselves using simulators cobbled together from fragments of confiscated technology. Every lesson came at a cost, but every cost hardened resolve. Humanity learned not only to endure, but to anticipate, to think beyond the confines the Council had placed around them. Generations grew up under alien rule, and with them came a mindset that no longer dreamed merely of freedom but of retribution. Children raised beneath patrol ships learned to treat the sight as motivation rather than despair. Families who whispered of lost colonies instilled in their descendants not grief, but determination. The story of Earth became the story of survival waiting for its moment. The Council's fleets still passed through Sol, but their vigilance waned. Reports of unrest were rare, and when incidents occurred, they were dismissed as isolated sabotage. What they never realized was that each act of sabotage was not rebellion but rehearsal. Every intercepted patrol, every data breach, every stolen supply run was a test, a refinement of methods that would one day be unleashed on a far greater scale. Humanity had no illusions about the challenge ahead. They were fewer in number, their technology centuries behind, their fleets non-existent compared to the Council's armadas. Yet they possessed something the Council did not: desperation sharpened into clarity. To the Council, domination was routine. To humanity, survival was an obsession. An obsession breeds innovation at a pace no complacent empire can match. Beneath the alien gaze, hidden in shadow, humanity constructed more than weapons. They forged an identity. They were no longer fragmented nations or rival cultures. They were Earth united, Earth denied, Earth preparing. They had accepted humiliation outwardly only to buy the time needed to transform inwardly. The chains placed upon them were being repurposed into blades. The Council believed humanity had been pacified. What they failed to see was that in denying Earth the stars, they had given humanity something greater: time to learn, time to build, time to prepare for the day when the silence would end. The breaking point arrived not through careful design but through cruelty. A human colony, sanctioned by the Council only as a resource outpost, was subjected to an example meant to remind Earth of its subjugation. A patrol fleet descended, stripped the stores, and slaughtered civilians when quotas lagged. The massacre was broadcast across systems as a warning. To the Council, it was routine discipline. To humanity, it was the last insult that could be endured. The images traveled faster than the sensors could contain them. Streets filled with grief that hardened into fury. Underground networks no longer whispered of patience, they demanded action. For years, weapons and ships had been prepared in silence. Now, with the galaxy watching and the wound fresh, Earth's leaders agreed, the time for concealment was over. Humanity would answer not with petitions, but with force. The first strike was chosen carefully. A patrol fleet near Jupiter, long accustomed to drifting lazily along its orbit, was marked as the target. The humans knew the Council would not expect resistance there. Arrogance had made the invaders predictable. When the hidden armada emerged, it did not reveal itself with ceremony. It struck with precision born of decades of frustration. Council ships found themselves assailed by tactics no simulator had prepared them for. Cloaked vessels emerged from the shadows of moons, releasing electronic pulses that blinded sensors. Small, agile craft swarmed in coordinated patterns, exploiting blind spots in formations designed for massive set-piece battles. Boarding teams pierced hulls and cut their way through corridors, taking control of ships from within. What the Council considered primitives had just demonstrated mastery of every weakness they had observed in their overlords. The battle was brief but decisive. Not a single human vessel was lost, though many bore scars that testified to desperation over technology. The Council's patrol fleet, considered untouchable, was reduced to wreckage in hours. Some ships were captured, stripped for secrets that had long been denied. For the first time since Earth's subjugation, the sky belonged not to the Council, but to humanity. News of the ambush traveled across the galaxy like fire racing through dry grass. Alien civilizations accustomed to Council dominance could scarcely believe the reports. A client race, thought pacified and backward, had destroyed a fleet that should have overwhelmed them. In Council chambers, confusion gave way to alarm. How had the humans acquired such ships? Who had armed them? What powers had secretly aided their rebellion? The possibility that humanity had achieved this on their own was unthinkable. They demanded explanations, but humanity provided none. Instead, a transmission cut across multiple channels, unmistakably human in origin. It was not a plea, not a justification, but a declaration. Earth would no longer kneel. The message was short, unadorned, delivered with steel in its tone. We remember. Every wound, every humiliation, every life stolen. We are done waiting. The words struck harder than weapons. In a galaxy accustomed to subservience, such defiance was an act of audacity beyond comprehension. For the Council, it was an omen. For countless suppressed species, it was a spark. If Earth could resist, if Earth could bleed the mighty fleets of their oppressors, then perhaps others could too. The Council responded with outrage. Emergency sessions convened, voices clamored for retribution, fleets were mobilized to remind Earth of its place. But the damage had already been done. Humanity had shattered the illusion of control. The Council's fleets were vast, but their confidence had been pierced. They had underestimated humanity once, and now they feared what else lay hidden. On Earth, there was no celebration. The victory at Jupiter was not treated as triumph, but as the first step in a campaign that could not be abandoned. There was no turning back. To resist and then falter would mean annihilation. Humanity knew that the Council would come with overwhelming force. Yet the people of Earth were no longer afraid. They had seen that their enemy could bleed. The retaliation had begun. And it would not end until the chains that bound Earth were shattered. The Council's response came with predictable fury. Fleets larger than anything Earth had yet faced poured into Sol, commanded by admirals who had never known defeat. To them, the rebellion would be extinguished with overwhelming firepower. Yet what they encountered was unlike any war they had ever waged. Humanity refused to fight by their rules. Instead of open battle, the first waves of Council ships found themselves dragged into a contest of attrition. Patrol routes vanished into silence. Supply convoys disappeared without a trace. Command ships discovered their communications infiltrated, relays hijacked to broadcast human voices mocking their weakness. Ambushes appeared in the most unlikely places, mines detonating inside asteroid fields, guided debris tearing holes in armored hulls, decoys luring fleets into carefully prepared traps. The clash at Saturn became the turning point. Council forces, confident in their superiority, advanced into the ring system expecting to crush a small human fleet. What they encountered was chaos engineered with precision. Hidden charges ruptured the dense fields, transforming Saturn's rings into a storm of high-velocity fragments. Alien formations disintegrated as ships collided with waves of debris, their defenses overwhelmed by the sheer volume of projectiles. Human warships darted between gaps, striking vulnerable targets and vanishing into cover. In hours, what had begun as a demonstration of alien strength ended as a massacre that left wreckage strewn across the system. From that moment, Council commanders realized humanity was not an opponent to be dismissed. Every engagement brought new tactics, none repeated, each exploiting a fresh weakness. Battles once predictable turned into nightmares of misdirection and deception. Humans abandoned the idea of victory through force of arms alone. They fought wars of psychology, striking at morale as much as at metal. Alien crews began to fear the empty silence of space, for it often signaled another trap. Beyond Sol, whispers spread. Races long bent beneath the Council's rule watched Earth defy the impossible. Smuggled transmissions carried stories of human victories, exaggerated or not, and with them came the seed of rebellion in other worlds. Where once the Council's name commanded obedience, now it carried the taste of vulnerability. Humanity pressed the advantage with relentless momentum. Captured ships were stripped and refitted, their alien technology repurposed with ingenuity the Council had never considered. Every victory yielded new materials, new data, new tools to strengthen the retaliation. Factories hidden under oceans and deep within mountains churned day and night, producing weapons designed not for parity but for surprise. Every design was meant to counter Council doctrine, to exploit the predictability of an empire that had not been challenged for centuries. The Council, fragmented by its own pride, struggled to adapt. Some members argued for negotiation, others demanded extermination, but consensus eluded them. Their fleets grew more desperate, their losses harder to disguise. What they had dismissed as a primitive nuisance now threatened to unravel the myth of invincibility that kept their dominion intact. Human commanders understood this weakness and wielded it mercilessly. They ensured every battle ended with survivors, witnesses who would carry stories of human defiance back to their superiors. Not every alien feared death, but all feared shame. To face defeat at the hands of the species once branded unworthy was a humiliation no counselor wished to admit. In the void of space, the war raged not as a contest of numbers but as a struggle of wills. Humanity's fleets were smaller, their resources strained, yet every engagement turned the Council's superiority into liability. Bureaucracy slowed alien responses, human adaptability accelerated them. For every 1,000 ships the Council deployed, humans needed only a fraction to turn victory into doubt. By the end of the campaign's second year, Sol was no longer a prison but a fortress. The system bristled with defenses, and Council incursions grew less frequent. Earth's retaliation was no longer a question of survival. It had become a campaign of inevitability. The Council still possessed strength beyond measure, but the illusion of control had been shattered. Humanity had proven they could not only resist, they could win.